Here he is, one half of the Rink Boy duo with Andrew Wadden, our Vancouver Canucks reporter. He was at development camp and can give us a answer on the poll question. How are you, Jeff Paterson?
I'm doing well. Yeah, back in the rink last night on UBC.
Yeah. So answer me the poll, and then we'll move on to the events you saw this past week here at UBC.
Yeah, I suppose I'd go Willander on the poll just because it's such an area of need, and now I want to see this guy develop, and I love the path going to Boston U, which is a little unconventional, obviously, for a European defender. So I know the Canucks are excited that he's going to be on this side of the pond, and their player development staff will have ample opportunities to work with him and talk to him and help him develop. So. I watched that prospect scrimmage last night, and you're reminded that, the prospect pool could still use an awful lot. That, all due respect to the guys that are out there, I thought the effort level was high. It very much looked like an early July scrimmage of a bunch of prospects that have never seen each other or played with each other. And if anybody was expecting this to be any sort of midseason hockey, they were probably disappointed. But then again, the people that made the effort in early July to get up and go to UBC, they just wanted their hockey fix. So I don't imagine many people were disappointed seeing these guys do their thing and go through the motions last night.
Jonathan Lekkerimäki with a rousing endorsement from Chris Higgins. We played the clip earlier, Jeff. Looked a new player this year. And, of course, it was the second half of the season where he really shone in Sweden. Just remind us here a little bit about Lekkerimäki's game. And we got a question about he's going back to Europe next year. So give us your assessment of Lekkerimäki over the last few days.
Yeah, look, I was out there Tuesday briefly, and those were just practices, and I am so loath to judge or grade anybody. Mm-hmm. We don't do that during the regular season. Practice, and that's all this was. Lots of coaches on the ice, so the coach to student ratio was pretty incredible, actually. So, it's great hands-on. And if you remember last year, Lekkerimäki came directly from the draft in Montreal, was under the weather. I just think there was an awful lot that maybe he had been through, and it kind of caught up with him because he didn't look great at last year's camp. And unfortunately, that's the first visual for a lot of people, and already people want to write this guy off, and he's a bust. And as you said, got off to a tough start, but finished strong, earned a contract. And he had a little more jump. He shoots from everywhere. Like, that is his calling card, that this guy is a shooter and he can score from distance. And nobody was keeping statistics last night. At least I hope nobody. I hope there was nobody in the rink with a little, shot chart. But, they played two halves, 25 minutes. I would venture that he put 10 or 12 pucks towards the net. Scored once, nice goal. People have probably seen the video. The Canucks caught it on film. But he's just not afraid to shoot at all. I want to see some of his playmaking develop. You can't just, every time you cross the blue line, can't whip a puck on net. I know that people say, hey, there are worse options than shooting a puck. But as he continues to grow and develop his game, I want to see a little bit more creativity from him. I want to see him get to some areas, I suppose, maybe win a few battles to get pucks and then use his teammates. But at this stage and at this level, this guy is just a volume shooter, and he's got a big-time shot. So, he's playing to his strength. Now he just has to round out the rest of his game.
I don't mind that profile, though. Sure, you want a guy more well-rounded, as you say,
especially alongside Petey.
Right? I don't. We thought Besser was that. Besser's not a shoot-first mentality. I mean, do the Canucks even own that guy right now? And I don't know. That's not a bad thing to have in your quiver if you're the Canucks, I guess.
Kuzmenko's a volume tipper,
right? Yeah,
in front of the net.
Different though. But if you're talking about a circle shooter, Petey might be that guy, but of course he's starting to feed pucks around too. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think early on, when Brock Besser burst onto the scene, the Canucks needed him to score because they didn't have anybody else that scored goals for them. And then obviously, as they started to amass some better talent, Bo Horvat emerged as a goal scorer. Elias Pettersson shows up on the scene and is now a legitimate goal scorer. Kuzmenko Miller. So, there are goal scoring options, and Brock has had to sort of change his game. And yet I think a lot of us still are stuck on him being the guy that broke into the NHL with 29 goals as a rookie and scored in that first game that he ever played in Minnesota and all those types of things. So, the team has changed around him. I do think his game has evolved a little bit. And Lekkerimäki is going to be a 19-year-old playing in the Swedish Hockey League this year. So he's still remarkably young. I think I hope he's got some growing, maybe not get taller, but just fill out, get a little bit stronger. And it'll be interesting to see, because you're right. Like, not everybody is blessed with that talent of being able to, beat goaltenders cleanly with a shot, and he can. But that can't be your only option, especially on North American ice, where time and space gets taken away in a hurry. So yeah, it's going to be fun to watch his growth and development. Michael Samuelsson obviously over there keeping close tabs on him, and Michael Samuelsson knew a thing or two about putting pucks in the net at the National Hockey League level. So I think the Canucks are in pretty good hands. Samuelsson wasn't one of the coaches last night, and he does seem like the right man for the job, overseeing their stable of European prospects.
Any other eyes bugging out moments, whether it was in practice or in games? I mean, as you say, we're not judging the player, but just any moments really, oh, that was a good shot, or that guy's pretty damn fast. Any of those kind of moments?
You know what? I wanted there to be a few of those moments. I didn't really think that there was a ton last night. It was a close game. There was one goal scored in the first half. One of the guys that jumped out at me, and he's just undeniable in his size, is the big Belarusian goaltender that they signed late last season, Nikita Tolopilo. And he was terrific. He pitched a shutout in his half of the game that he played, and just really strong Jacob Markstrom vibes. I mean, there are so many big goaltenders now, but this guy, like, he's at the top end of big, like at least 6'6", and then on skates, and just fills out the net. And sounded. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but those that did this week, just soaking this up, really excited to be in the organization. Said he had a couple of options, but really wanted to work with Ian Clark. So another ringing endorsement for, the job that Ian Clark has done developing goaltenders, particularly a lot of European goaltenders. So, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, there's already intrigue about the goaltending sort of depth chart and where it's all going to shake down. And I put him at a lower level. He's not, I don't think, in any sort of position to battle for an NHL job out of training camp. But how many starts does he get? Is he a guy in Abbotsford? They went and brought in Zach Sachenko over the weekend. So it's starting to get a little cluttered in the crease for the Vancouver Canucks. So that'll be sort of an interesting battle. But he just stood out to me. And I suppose Vilmer Alriksson, the other big, tall guy, they contested what had to have been one of the tallest shootouts on record in any level of hockey, because after the game last night, they went through the motions. They did a shootout, and Alriksson actually scored a really nice goal in the shootout on Tolopilo, but that's a whole lot of hockey player out there, both of them at 6'6", and then some. It's funny because Alriksson, when they drafted him last week, and again, it was just a name, and you see his stats, and 6'6" already at 18 years of age, and he stands out, and he had opportunities in the game last night, but I also think you got a glimpse of some of the things that have held him back. It looked like he was fighting the puck a fair bit, and I just look at a guy that big at 18 years of age playing in the junior league over in Sweden. You'd think he could just lean on a lot of his opponents, get to the front of the net and pound a few pucks home, and for whatever reason, the statistics, the counting stats weren't there for him. So, very much a project. That's part of why he was drafted in the fourth round. But, you're drawn to him just because he truly is a head taller than just about anybody else that's out there on the ice. The other guy is Joni Jurmo, looks the part. And, a 2020 draft, so it's been a few years of development.
It's go time. Yeah.
6'3", got a pretty strong build, skates well. And I asked Chris Higgins about him afterwards and just said, to the eye, I mean, he checks off a lot of the boxes, kind of what's the holdup, or, what does he have to work on? And Chris just said, continues to have to, process the game, that it's not necessarily what's happening, it's what's going to happen, and sort of try to get that one step ahead. And I guess they've got some issues with him, and the fact that they're not bringing him over to play in North America this year, so he'll go back in another year. And in Finland, again, all the raw tools are there, but you're right, it does kind of feel like go time, and it'll be interesting to see if he ever amounts to anything in this Vancouver Canuck organization.
Unfair question, maybe an unfair ask of him, but did Tom Willander look a year away from being an NHL player?
I'd say no, but again, it was July the 5th, week after he was drafted, summer camp. He had some moments. I don't think he was at his best last night. And I know there were expectations, but when I watched him in the practice on Tuesday, like just the raw skills are there, like a fluid skater, makes it look relatively easy. And he did a couple of good things last night, settling plays down, creating some space for himself, some of those little things that aren't going to bring people out of their seats. But, it told you a little bit about his anticipation and the way that he was processing the game. But again, another guy that, he's got to fill out. There's no doubt. And I think he recognizes that, probably 6'1", but maybe 180 pounds. So there's some growing to do there. But yeah, I mean, I think we all have to be so cautious just to, people get their first look at a guy like this. You're excited and you want to think 11th overall pick in an NHL draft up against late round picks, free agent invitees, guys that will never touch NHL ice. You want to believe that he's going to pop. And that's why I said, he was okay last night. I don't want to give people the wrong impression. I don't think he struggled. I just, he didn't live up to maybe the billing that some would have shown up at UBC expecting this guy to hands down be the best player on the ice.
One sneaky name I brought up on our one of our social videos, and that you may not have spotlighted him at all, but you can speak to just a forgotten name. Kirill Kudryavtsev had a really nice junior year this year, and I don't think anybody regards him in the Canucks cupboard at all, but I mean, he had a really nice junior year last year, and may recoup something from the 7th round here for the Canucks.
Yeah, and the Canucks signed him. I mean, clearly they saw something there early enough to, offer him a contract. I noticed him fleetingly last night, and I'd seen the video, so I knew you guys had talked about him, and maybe subconsciously I thought I better watch out for this guy. Him and Dmitry Zlodeyev was another guy. Zlodeyev scored a nice penalty shot goal and had a couple of moments, and his motor was always running. Again, among the older of the prospects.
That's right.
Probably recognizing that, there won't be many more development camps, but there may not be many more opportunities for him in this organization. So, for years, defense was a position of weakness. When I look organizationally now, I mean, they may not have the blue chippers. They certainly hope Willander is, but on volume, when you add a Cole McWard, Nikita Hiroshi, and others, they're starting to have some options, and now, it's kind of that lottery ticket, right? You just hope that a few of these
and
will
DPD, right? Elias
Pettersson
starting to look like he's something.
Flood the zone, flood the position, hope that the cream rises. Jeff, you're under no obligation to indulge Blake's B-sides and deep cuts on the prospect file. And, Blake, the reason no one's talking about him because he's a 7th-round Russian with a difficult surname to pronounce.
Yeah, just say it fast. You just say it fast.
Yeah.
It can't be. It can't be wrong. Okay, everybody is talking about Elias Pettersson a little bit too on DPD. I mean, is he risen to the first echelon of prospect at the very least?
Yeah. Again, when I talk about Yanni Yermo, to the eye, Yermo looks like he should be a player. The other Elias Pettersson, certainly, a year, like I saw him last year at camp, he has filled out, he's grown up. I thought he had a nice first period last night. He and Willander were paired together for the most part, although, again, and that's another thing to keep in mind for people that weren't there, they don't have 2 full rosters. Like, they had 3 lines, and, one of the teams, I think, had 5 or 6, maybe they had 6 defensemen, but guys were playing with different partners, different line combinations, and again, that just kind of spoke to the lack of fluidity in the hockey game. But the other EP40, he's big, he's physical, and I noticed that even on Tuesday in drills. Like, this is a guy that finishes every check, positionally sound, seems to skate reasonably well for a big guy. So yeah, I think he's tracking in the right direction. Again, this is a year removed from his draft, so still relatively young. I would think a couple of years away. Maybe goes back and plays in Sweden this year, and then we'll see what the Vancouver Canucks have in store for him. But I mean, he's, to me, having watched him last year, seen some growth, he certainly looks like he has progressed, and then you hope that this is another big development year for him.
It's just nice to see guys tracking, right?
Yeah.
Because there are regression years the minute you get drafted,
and we're not too far away from the organization being so thin that, tracking was not really a thing, or they tracked. Okay, great. They moved from the Allsvenskan to the Swedish League. And, you're still miles away from the National Hockey League. Jeff, switching gears here. I saw you wrote about it for your hockey news page. I was certainly caught off guard by the news yesterday that at age 62, Alain Vigneault says he's retiring from coaching. A word or two about the news we got from our old friend AV yesterday.
I don't know that I'm shocked. Obviously his phone wasn't ringing, and my sense is that he wasn't going to step back and be an assistant coach at this stage of his career, and so I think head coaching opportunities probably had vanished. I know that there were some that questioned whether the game had passed him by. Didn't somebody call him a dinosaur? I think in Philadelphia. And he didn't coach at all last year. He was fired by the Flyers in December of 2021. So I think, the writing was on the wall there. And look, he had an incredible career, 1,300 plus regular season games, a whole bunch more in the playoffs, winning as coach in Canucks history. I was fortunate to have been on the beat for every one of his games, the best era of Vancouver Canuck hockey. Took the Sedins and Kessler and molded that group, obviously, and some of the things that they did with offensive zone starts and the way that they put players in positions to succeed. And obviously, getting Roberto Luongo into the fold, great goaltending, makes great coaches. 2 Stanley Cup finals. Obviously, didn't get his hands on the Stanley Cup, but he was a coach of the year early on in his tenure with the Vancouver Canucks. And I just always appreciated his demeanor. I mean, he was serious behind the bench, but I think he recognized that he was among the fortunate ones in life that was getting to do what he loved to do, and it was a game at the end of the day. Yes, it's big business and big money, but between the lozenge and the en français at the end of every media availability, there was just a perspective that I always enjoyed. And then as I got out on the road and traveled for those 3 seasons, when I ran into him, whether it was in New York, in Philadelphia, whatever the case, always had a moment just at the end of his scrum to see the local Vancouver guys there and stop and check in with us. And so always appreciated my time in and around Alain Vigneault, one of the good guys. Unfortunately for him, not just 2011 and falling short in Game 7, but the following year with the President's Cup and the President's Trophy and getting eliminated by an 8th seed. Now we know that those Kings were a special 8th seed. I think the really disappointing one, and you guys were there that night in San Jose, getting swept by the Sharks as the higher seed in 2013, really just kind of felt like it was time to turn the page, and ultimately that's what the Vancouver Canucks did.
You're absolutely right. He had great perspective, understanding where he was and how lucky he was. He was a fantastic people person. Well, still is a fantastic people person. I think the happiest I ever heard him, Blake, we interviewed him during the lockout, and he mentioned to us that he had the opportunity to go and watch one of his daughters play basketball where she was playing in Montreal. And it was sort of a moment where you could tell Alain knew that there was a lot of sacrifices that him and his family made for him to chase the NHL dream. Yep. And I do hope he gets his fill of his family time from here on out. Marvelous stuff, Jeff. You're sitting in for me tomorrow, so thank you for that, and we'll catch up next week.
All right, guys, thanks.
This Sekeres and Price clip brought to you by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino games, sports odds, and poker strategies.